In today's wars, cyber attacks are a crucial part. We've seen this, for example, in the war on Ukraine by Russia. So it's about time we actually go deep dive into how this works and what these groups do and how these countries do it. And today's subject is about Russia. So welcome to Threat Talks, and here from the Security Operations Center at Ontoit, we bring you Threat Talks, the deep dive, and the subject is the Seashell Blizzard. Let's get on to it.
Welcome to Threat Talks. Let's delve deep into the dynamic world of cybersecurity.
And here to help me create this episode today is Yuri Wit. He is one of our esteemed members of the Security Operations Center right here. And he specializes in figuring out how these bad guys actually work, what they do, and what amazing things they come up with. Yuri, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And on the other side, he is going to represent the attacker and the hackers. And on the other side, the good guy, Rob Maas. He's the field CTO of Ontoit, and we always turn to Rob if we want his advice on how to fend off these awful attacks that you are, well, not doing, maybe.
You wouldn't know.
Gentlemen, welcome. Well, first of all, I said Seashell Blizzard, and that may not resonate with everybody, but that's the main name we chose for this episode. But they go by a lot of names, eh? I mean, APT 44, Sandworm, Iron Viking, Electrum. I probably forget a few. Who is schizophrenic? These guys or us in giving them a different name all the time?
Definitely us. The main reason for all these different classifications of the group are purely caused by all the different companies and threat investigators. Whenever they look into threats seen, they'll apply a different name to the threat actors, and then eventually they'll figure out, hey, we have seen this behavior before, and they'll start attributing to that.
Yeah, it could even be that they come up with a name and then after the fact realize, it's the same guys as them.
Exactly.
But then they already published their first time on this. Yeah. And themselves, I mean, we're going to spoil the end of the episode a little bit maybe, but these guys brag about their achievements.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah, so and do they use different names as well?
No, not really. They're pretty consistent in that regards. Usually whenever they announce their attacks, which they often do, they'll go under the alias of Cyber Army of Russia Reborn, and they use a Telegram channel of the same name to personify themselves as a hacktivist group fighting the good cause.
So if we're talking about a group like this, what do we actually mean? Because we probably have come to the conclusion that they are the same because they use the same tactics, same
procedures.
Same everything. It's their infrastructure is the same all the time, huh? But is this the government of the of Russia, or is it? Do they hire them? Are these guys working from home? Is there an office building somewhere in Moscow? How do we know?
Well, we will never know for certain. That's the thing with all APTs globally. However, with the amount of attacks that we've seen from this group, or at least attacks that follow the same behavior of this group, we can highly likely attribute them to one of the GRU, actual intelligence organizations of the Russian military. They go within the Russian military, they go by the military unit classification 74455, which doesn't really roll off the tongue, which is why MITRE has opted to call them the Sandworm team or Sandworm or a variation of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what can we say about what they achieved or did wrong so far? I mean, Sandworm, I think we know them from a worldwide spread in harbors that brought down NotPetya.
Yeah.
For example,
they have done that as well. Yeah. Well, their main focus has always been on attacking Ukrainian businesses and Ukrainian organizations. The NotPetya attack that was seen in 2017 that shut down basically the global shipping industry was actually a side effect of an attack, of a supply chain attack that the group did on Ukrainian organizations. It was just a regular worm wiper malware. Was a ransomware, hence the name NotPetya, as Petya was a ransomware. This was a more refined version of the Petya ransomware that was purely used for wiping and making as much of
wiping, making damage, making sure that systems are down, so nothing can work.
Purely focused on disruption, which spread itself through SMB-v1 links to all the other major shipping ports around the world, causing massive damage, even greater than what the group apparently seem to have intended. Their initial target was purely just Ukrainian businesses.
Yeah, I thought it was injected by an update in some kind of accounting software to talk to the Ukrainian government, right?
Yeah. No, we don't know this for sure because the details get a little bit fuzzy at this point. But a lot of security researchers are confident that this initial attack vector was the exploitation of update service for this accounting software, which then automatically spread itself through automatic updates to the software used by all these Ukrainian businesses.
That was way before the war on Ukraine, eh?
Yeah.
Because now, Rob, war on Ukraine, apparently we always see here that the Ukrainians are actually quite good in defense, in cyber defense, but it's not because the Sandworm, the whatever name we choose for them here, is not attacking them, correct? But we've seen impact.
Yeah, well, I think Ukraine is doing well here, is focusing on what really is important. If I could go to Zero Trust, and I would say they know their protect services. Sorry,
it's about Zero Trust already.
But it is like the energy, the power plants. They are really protecting them well. Maybe they even air gap them to prevent these kinds of attacks. But by knowing that these are targets for this group, I'm not going to say a name because I don't know which name it is anymore.
Well, let's say that we say Seashell Blizzard for this.
If Seashell Blizzard is really focusing on these kinds of industries, and you know that, then you also know, okay, I need to take measures there. And that's what Ukraine is doing really well, I think.
Yeah, we saw German power
plants?
wind generators would actually go down because of an attack probably used for Ukraine. So the Ukrainians were able to stop the attack, but other countries.
Yeah, we also did an episode on that.
Yeah, indeed. All right. So and there was another one that was the Olympic Games the Winter Games in Korea, right?
Yes.
What happened there?
A very similar story is they were able to compromise a lot of systems used by the Olympic teams and the Olympic organization and just wipe them. It was purely for disruption purposes, or at least that's what we can see.
What do they gain from this then? Why would you, as Russia, want to destroy?
Yeah, this is probably because the Russians were then eliminated from the games because
retaliation. Then.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that happens. Okay, so then let's start at the beginning of attack. So, is there anything to say about how they get initial access?
Yes, this group is very notorious for their very stealthy initial attacks. Usually when they start attacking a target, they focus on being as quiet as possible. They go for very hard to detect, compromised edge infrastructure. So either firewalls or switches or whatever is on the edge of the target. But they do it in a very stealthy way by not just bombarding them with continuous exploitation requests. They very diligently do their research before they even start attacking. And then even once they have...
They shoot sharp, you might say.
Exactly. Yeah. They shoot very sharp. And then from then on, the moment that they have initial foothold, they stay stealthy. They go loud, but they go loud very late in a late stage of their attack.
Mm-hmm. Rob, from the defense department, is this something you can do about that stealthy thing? If they are trying to figure out your environment in a stealthy way, so in the first stages of the cyber kill chain, reconnaissance, is there anything to gain
to a certain extent? You can. We all know LinkedIn. I think that's a good example. If you have your company on there, then probably a lot of employees are linked to your company, and they state, for example, their job. And if the job is Windows Server Administrator, then you probably know that the company is running Windows servers. So you can look for vulnerabilities, for example.
That's quite stealthy.
Well, the information is out there, so they can use it without getting noticed because LinkedIn is just public information. Yeah. So you can do something about it, but that maybe might be restricting your employees from spreading this information. Yeah,
it's going to be hard. And even if you hire someone who has done the Windows administration all this year, and your company rule is do not say what you're doing here.
I think this really depending on the industry. I think this is in defense. If you're working for the military, I think this is quite common. But if you're just a regular organization, then mostly you will just end up on LinkedIn. Yeah.
But what he says is they attack at infrastructure, so the VPN concentrators itself, for example.
Yeah, for edge devices, you can take some countermeasures. First of all, if you have, let's pick the VPN concentrator or the VPN gateway. Don't put them together with your firewall. We also discussed this before because the firewall should regulate traffic.
That was a bit the theme of last year, huh? Your VPN infrastructure, your security infrastructure is under attack. So make sure you segment that out as well.
Yeah, we saw that still going on, but especially last year we saw a lot of vulnerabilities for different vendors on edge devices, firewalls mainly. And that was because the firewall was running not just firewall, was not doing just firewall, but also a VPN concentrator or showing a portal like a web server. And in those applications, there were found vulnerabilities and they were abused, for example, by Seashell Blizzard.
Yeah. Checkpoint came out with one recently again. So
that's still going on. But one of the countermeasures you can take is make sure that those those functionalities are taken off your security device. So take them off your firewall, put them in a different segment. So at least you can have more control about the flows there.
Okay. So their initial access is really stealthy edge devices, so it's less sending PDFs and trying to get into the endpoint then.
Yeah, no, they commonly go for known vulnerable machines and they try to exploit vulnerabilities. They do a lot of zero-day based attacks as well. They are a very competent military unit, so it's not like they just find their exploits online. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we've almost never seen an attack by Seashell Blizzard where they purposely use the more loud technique like phishing or spear phishing to gain that initial access.
Interesting, yeah. Okay, and then the next step is privilege escalation.
Yeah. The also a very stealthy method. They primarily focus on using LOLBin attacks, so living off the land, meaning to only use binaries and executables that are found on the target's infrastructure already and not deploying
let's explain that a little bit. So someone is on this VPN concentrator, so has gained access to the operating system there through a 0-day. And then living off the land means there's tools already installed on that machine to perform attacks.
Yeah.
Why are they there?
Well, with every operating system, there are a lot of pre-installed tools and binaries that are just integral to the functionality of the operating system, and definitely whatever actual solution is installed on it.
So Rob is not going to say harden your devices because then it doesn't work, because you also need those tools to function.
Yes.
I would argue that it's not, yes, it's partly true. But as for example, I see a lot of PowerShell still be available for users. For a lot of systems, PowerShell is not needed. That's one side. The other side.
So PowerShell shouldn't even be on.
If it is not needed, then make sure that it's not there. Yeah. And that's just a very simple example. But also, even if PowerShell is there, then the user should not be able to execute PowerShell if it is just a regular user and not an administrator, because probably the attacker, once they gained access, they are there with the default user first before they promote their privileges. So if you then can limit the use of these tools, you make it much harder for them. The last part you can do here is have an EDR tool installed that can also check for behavior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's important to note that these LOLBin attacks, the reason why they're called living off the land is not because these tools are inherently dangerous to use. It's purely due to the fact that all these tools can be exploited in such a way to do additional attacks like enumeration of the rest of the network. I mean, if you have ping installed on your machine and an attacker compromises that machine, then ping is available to use them from within that machine to do a very basic check on other...
given the focus on stealthiness, I mean, if you would first download like a second stage thing, that would probably be detected at some point. So you want to avoid that as an attacker.
Yeah, definitely if you're using EDR systems.
Yeah, so therefore they make it really hard. And it sounds a bit dangerous, huh? Or are we confident that with proper controls, it shouldn't even get to this part, so we can then close this episode and it's all up to everybody to...
No, I don't think there's no such thing as 100% security, and that's also in this case. But we can make it much harder, and I think so. The things that we already discussed, it's privilege management, making sure hardening the system, installing EDR software, also segmentation, briefly discussed in the previous part of this with the
Yeah, the
initial
point
foothold.
the point of segmentation being that if they are on a system, then it's not. They have to start all over again because there's yet another barrier to get to the
and especially if in this case they want to do damage, so they probably want to infect or at least have access to a lot of systems to make the blast radius bigger and the effect bigger. So if you do proper segmentation, or at least make it really hard for them to get to that ratio.
Yeah. Okay. And then, what happens?
Well, we've seen time and time again in all the engagements that Seashell Blizzard has been attributed to or contributed to. We see that their main goal is to get access to the group policy object configuration within a target's Active Directory configuration.
For the 99.9% of our listeners and viewers that have not ever seen such a thing, explain, what is that?
So within Active Directory, which is the user identity privilege management tool that basically every enterprise on Earth uses, there's this thing called GPO, Group Policy Objects, which programmatically define certain tools or executables or services or even permissions that need to be configured on certain endpoints or users.
So very powerful configuration.
Yeah, it would it could say PowerShell is not installed here, or I remove PowerShell.
Yeah, that would be configured in the GPO. Yeah.
And they make use of it or attack it, or what do they do with it?
Well, they first, so they'll perform their privilege escalation, try to get the highest rights on any endpoint that they might find, and they primarily focus on getting domain admin rights within a user's a target's Active Directory environment. Domain admin.
Yeah,
meaning,
so if you're talking about endpoints here, you mean servers. It could also be a server, huh?
Yeah, server,
so
workstations.
That's how they get in. They don't go through workstations, but they go in through servers. So it's probably they are on some kind of file server or indeed a VPN concentrator or whatever, and they try to be administrator there.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then once they have rights to edit these GPOs, we see them continuously use a specific script called TankTrap. TankTrap is a PowerShell script, hence looking down PowerShell again. It's a modified version of an already more widely known exploit called PowerGPO abuse. And the primary purpose of this script is to deploy software to all endpoints that are domain joined, meaning that they are linked in the Active Directory configuration, to deploy their wiper software. So you can literally define a GPO.
They use the system tools to deploy themselves.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like building your own MDM for malware.
Talking about living off the land.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So, Rob, this must be good news, because the only thing we need to do to make sure that the Russians do not get us is disable PowerShell. Or is that too simplistic?
Well, yeah, if they own the Active Directory and the group policy, they can easily enable it again.
Oh.
So I would say,
they use the same tool to redeploy it. Yeah.
So I would first start with making sure that they don't get access to Active Directory. At least make that as difficult as possible. Also, again here, segmentation. Allow other protocols like LDAP. LDAP is, for example, needed for the authentication. Hopefully LDAP-S, so the secure variant. Also DNS is needed. I hope it stays with that. Often I see a lot of other things also being opened, but that will make it really hard to get access to your Active Directory. But still, if they have access there, then hopefully there's also an EDR tool installed there that detect malicious behavior. In retrospect, so more like a SIEM solution, what you could do is make sure that you log all the changes on that machine and see, okay, but now I see some potential dangerous changes, so like the GPO policy, and then you can act on it. But that's after the fact. So that's
we have to revert to first looking in the SIM. Then
first go to preventive measures, and then this is your last resort if you fail.
All right. Then we're getting to the last stage of the kill chain, action on objectives. What's to say about that for this group?
It's very simple. Their main objective always in every attack has been either to exfiltrate data and or deploy wiper software. Causing damage and disruption is primarily the largest focus of this group. Before even the NotPetya attack in 2017, They were notorious for continuously attacking the power grid from Ukraine without really a purpose of exfiltrating data or deploying anything else except for just shutting it all down by implementing wiper software.
Yeah, so I get that if you want to bring down a country's infrastructure, so then you can with a more traditional military force take a country. That I get that part, but it's also, especially with the NotPetya, it's so loud.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why would they do this? If then I think of Stuxnet, where we know that was years ago, right? So there's Israel and US. They made offline working malware to get into Iranian nuclear research facilities, and they screwed their sensor. So the guys thought, hey, it's I don't know, 60 degrees, and in fact it was 70, and they were trying to change and they couldn't make sense of their sensor. They influenced what the readouts of the sensor. Very clever. It took them years, and like 5 years or so, to figure out it's the sensor, it's the malware on there. That sounds so much more effective to me, to subtly, in a subtle way, I mean, disrupt your opponent. But they don't do that.
No.
Or do they?
Well, no, they don't. They are very loud, but that's the point. Is they want to make a statement. Is they disrupt these giant services and these critical infrastructures to make a statement saying, "Hey, we can do this." It's really a show of force from this group towards their opposing states.
Is there anything to do about this continuity issue, Rob?
Well, hopefully you already took the measures before, because the last step
if all your
really,
previous advice didn't work, then we're down.
Yeah, so if the malware is indeed installed, so they succeeded in that, then it's really hard to do anything here. Of course, you still hope that you have your EDR tools, etc., running that detect it when this malware is being executed. But if it is being able to execute because everything is implemented properly, then the only thing to rely on here, I think, is your backup, and then start building again.
A backup is the final last resort security defense tool.
Yeah.
Well, usually for an adversary, it stops here, right? They have achieved their goal. They demanded a ransom. They exfiltrated the data. But not for this group, huh?
No. Whenever this group finish their attacks, or even before they finish their attacks, successful or not, they loudly exclaim from all the rooftops how they did it, or not how they did it, but what they did.
So your job, the part attribution in your job is really easy with this group.
It's much easier, yes. This group loves to flaunt their successes and even tell the world that their failures are actually their successes. Successes. There was one attack where they deployed their caddy wiper malware, which is a very, not simple, but generic wiper malware to just disrupt as much systems as possible. And even before the execution of that caddy wiper started, they already announced in their Telegram channel, their Cyber Army of Russia Reborn channel, that they did it. Telegraphing their success is a very high priority for this group.
Okay, I thought that you use Signal to announce attacks that are.
Well, only if you want to be secure, and they don't really care about
that's true.
that.
That's true. Yeah. All right, gentlemen. Drop some final words of wisdom, maybe, about this. What can we learn from this? How should we plan our day differently tomorrow if we're in the defense department?
Yeah, I think we already had a lot of tips during this episode that you should absolutely do. On the bragging part, if they brag before they executed it, then be aware of that, hopefully, and then disconnect your systems. Make sure that they cannot pull this switch to.
So we should follow this Telegram channel.
Well, I think for everyone is doing security, threat intel group, that threat intel team is really important, because then you can detect these things.
Yeah, in this case, it's actually you can even use that kind of knowledge as a
last resort preventive measure, I would say.
Yeah, but it's still it has a touch of prevention in it.
Yeah, a touch of prevention.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that, gentlemen, thank you very much for these insights. Let's implement those measures and hope that this part of the world doesn't reach us.
No.
And to our listeners and viewers, thank you very much for tuning in. If you like this episode, we'd appreciate if you press the like and subscribe button because that helps us spread the word. And it will also make sure that next Tuesday you will have our next episode in your inbox. From headquarters here at Onto It, thank you once again and see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Threat Talks, a podcast by Onto It Cybersecurity and AMS-IX. Did you like what you heard? Do you want to learn more? Follow Threat Talks to stay up to date on the topic of cybersecurity.